When Game of Thrones ended pretty controversially at the start of 2019, I was really struggling to find a series that captured the same feelings I got from it. I wanted that action, those political scenes, that tension, and just that rich, well thought out world with interesting characters and locations. Vikings had been on my watch list for many years, but every time I watched it, I constantly compared it to Game of Thrones, and it always got put on the bench as I felt it wasn't as good. But a few months later on, I found myself watching it and binge watched all 5 seasons of it, and I absolutely adored it. The characters were great, the setting was well thought out, and the constant links to Norse mythology piqued my interest. This was certainly my type of show, especially after season 1, which had some hit and miss moments. So I was excited for the release of Vikings season 6, which came out just before Christmas 2019. And in this video, I want to give my review of part 1 of this season, talk about what it did right and what it missed at times, and just give some all-round thoughts as to what I thought of it. This video will be the non-spoiler version, so if you want my thoughts on the events that took place in the season, then check out my spoiler review, which should follow this one. So without further ado, here is my Vikings season 6 part 1 review. So season 6 part 1 is the penultimate season for the Vikings. It's getting to the point where a lot of stories are coming to their conclusions. We are basically getting to the end game now. The whole big theme of this series is the infamous Norse story of Ragnarok, the end of all gods and men. I got to say the execution of this Ragnarok theme is so perfect. The characters all really show off their roles in the story, and their links to the actual gods is incredible. Throughout my watch, I was constantly trying to work out who represented each god, and with that tried to work out who would be doomed and who would look to succeed in it. As for characters, we mainly stick to the cast we have grown to love over the past 5 seasons. There are a few additional characters added to the roster, but the characters are added to boost the main characters' stories and give them more depth going forward. At the start of the season, there is a big focus on Lagertha, which, I don't know, I sort of lost a bit of interest in her around season 4 or 5 maybe. I felt like after Ragnar died and she became queen, I just didn't really like her as much as a character anymore, which sounds bad because she wasn't only good because of Ragnar, but there was a missing dynamic I felt. I also felt like because of the new cast of characters Ivar, Fitzurk, Uber, etc., her acting really showed as not being up to that standard, especially the accent, but you know, whatever. She is a big focus during the first part of this season as it looks to show off her influence as the untouchable shield maiden that everyone has come to adore. There is also a big focus on Björn and his role within Norway and how he struggles to keep his power within the world, which is interesting to see because they've always built Björn to be this idolized child, the golden child if you will, but finally we are seeing him struggle for power, and it was a side that we haven't seen before. We saw his father Ragnar do that, but not Björn, so that was a new storyline to explore. With that comes my favourite, King Harald, who is once again performed so well by Peter Franzen. The dynamic between Harald and Björn has always been my favourite because you can tell at times they really respect each other and other times they absolutely despise each other and would happily kill one another to get what they want. They work so well together, and throughout this season you really get an idea as to how these guys fit into the Viking world. After season 5, Ivar is chased out of Kattegat and now is in Russia with the Rus, who are the once Vikings, now Christian population, who are still war hungry and extremely powerful. What I loved about this story in particular was Ivar's relationship with our new Russian warlord Oleg, who is a terrifying leader. The thing I love about this relationship is the fact that Oleg and Ivar are not too different in the slightest. Throughout their scenes you always feel like you're watching Ivar watch himself and realise what type of person he is. The similarities between the two are uncanny, and you see Ivar take a more hesitant approach as he watches from the sidelines to see what Oleg gets up to. The great thing about them was that it's made Ivar much more an interesting character because now after he's experienced Oleg and his extremely harsh way of running things, I can't tell if this has changed him as a character. You feel like he's learning to be a more tactical leader who may still be terrifying, but has learned the more aggressive leadership that Oleg has and Ivar used to have doesn't work, and he needs to change things up if he is ever going to get back on top in Norway or wherever he ends up. There are other storylines developing within this story, like Detective Uber, who is trying to find the lost Floki in Iceland, and Fitzurk's dependence on drugs to help him with the images in his mind, but all round the writing for this season was really top standard, and I like the majority of the storylines on hand, especially the King Harald Björn struggle for power and Ivar's relationship with Oleg. There are still a few characters who just don't do anything for me and they still try and make them a big focus, like Torvi for example, who I just can't get into. She just bores me if I'm totally honest. I also feel like Uber needs a serious scenario to happen because he feels like he's the only son of Ragnar who does absolutely nothing during seasons. Although he has a nice new eye tattoo, he just didn't do anything this season, and that was a shame because I feel like he could be a really interesting character to explore. Maybe part 2 will change that, but we'll have to wait and see. Directing wise was always top standard, and I get a bit annoyed that we have this constant discussion about not enough women do directing in film and TV, but Vikings proves time and time again it can have male and female directors who both direct fantastic pieces, and honestly the direction in almost all of the episodes was great, especially as they have this overarching theme of Ragnarok in every episode. We saw Catherine Winnick, who played Lagerthird, make her directorial debut this season, directing actually an extremely difficult episode, and you know what, she pulled it out of the bag. It was a really great episode with some heartfelt moments, some great storytelling, and yeah, it was a great debut for her and she should be proud. I feel like there was a slight difference in style compared to other episodes, a lot of techniques being used that felt very predictable, like cutting back to the past and cross-fading to something else in the same location. Bit predictable at times if you ask me, but no, all round a really solid episode by her, and it would be great to see her do more as a director. But the direction was always matched with the absolutely stunning cinematography, which just made this one of the most beautiful series I have seen. The slow motion of the Rus invading areas really captured how ghost-like they are when it comes to taking over areas. It shows that they can get in and out of a raid so fast, causing devastation along the way. And I love that you can instantly tell what was going to happen when the shots went into more of a high frame rate and slowed right down. Fantastic idea if you ask me, it perfectly captured them as an army and warriors. The cinematography for Fitzurk's visions was also pretty amazing, some really odd angles, some great tilt shifts with the lens, extremely shallow depth of field. It really helped put you in the role of Fitzurk during these moments. All round, to be honest, Vikings has always had a beautiful look to its overall show. Cinematography has always been a key to making the episodes stand out, be that when they interacted with the seer, creating this unworldly looking places with some eerie camera moves, extremely shallow depth of field to keep you in that moment, and just the green tone to it. Then you have the battles like Paris and the Rus invasion within the season. They're just so gripping to watch, and they just keep you gripped all the time. They are a pleasure to watch, and kudos to the cinematographers. It really is a stunning show with some great techniques on show. Pacing wise it was good, but there was certainly a lot of building up episodes. The first episode starts off fantastic, ending in a way that really built up the setting of Ragnarok. But during the mid part of the season you can tell there were filler episodes to build up to the last couple of episodes with the Rus and everything else. There was one episode however which felt so rushed at the end. I felt like they wanted to add another scene but got told that they had to end it then and there, making this whole episode come to a dramatic end on a single line, which made me go, did I miss something, or what just happened?
Send word out to the kings and jarls together here
to elect Bjorn Ironside, King of all Norway.
I already have. What? What the fuck?
Whilst I enjoyed watching the episodes, I did feel like sometimes they could have been paced a little better, but that didn't take away from my viewing experience. I will say this though, the way Vikings uses juxtaposition to set a mood and tone and tell a story is really exceptional. This isn't the first season where they have done it, but some of the juxtaposition within this season in particular was incredible. Be that a poem, be that with a traditional Viking song, be that with a memory for example. The way they tell you what is going on without having to have someone spurt out a ton of exponential dialogue is fantastic. I got chills at the end of some episodes because of how haunting they set up scenes and add to the storytelling. It's so poetic and proof of fantastic direction and writing once again. And finally matched with the brilliant soundtrack, it just helped enhance moments of tension, of battles, and during emotive moments. Honestly, the all-round direction of music, cinematography, and directing all comes together to make some phenomenal moments, especially in the last episode. The music there is incredible and made for such a gripping experience. But to summarize, part 1 for me was a great season. I do feel like it was more of a building season to make way for the final part and the final season, but the techniques used within part 1 made it really stand out on its own, and it was fine watching. I do feel like the pacing could have been improved going into part 2, but it certainly isn't anywhere as bad as season 7 or season 8 of Game of Thrones pacing, and I think that is because Vikings has stuck to its guns and not wanted to try and cram a rich, engaging story into 7 episodes, and thank goodness, because this is too complex a show to be rushed. I mean, so was Game of Thrones, but they somehow messed that one up. Acting was as good as ever, and although some characters I really can't get into, like Torvi, seem to have loads of screen time, the key characters really help make this series stand out, especially Bjorn, Ivar, and Fitzurk. All round, it was a solid first part of the season 6, and I am very excited to see what part 2 brings us. If you want to hear my thoughts on the spoilers, check out my spoilers review in the description, or on the other side hopefully. If you like this video, do hit that like button and subscribe for more TV, film, and game reviews. Also, do let me know your thoughts on the season in the comments below. I'd love to know what you thought of it and if you're excited for part 2. But that's all for now. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.